when you cover the elections, you typically expect that the day is going to be peaceful, that the count's going to be peaceful. And for the most part, it was. But the chaos that ensued, it was something that I was wholly unprepared for.
For many of us, it's still a traumatic experience. Some of us as journalists are still reading from that.
I knew it was going to be a long day. I don't think anybody had envisioned what would happen the days and the months following after that.
My experience in all the elections did not prepare me for the occurrences in the March 2020.
Here is where the heart of elections lies. Here is also part of where almost an entire machinery was manipulated to declare skewed results. Here is elections 2020.
I was assigned to cover Region 3, where the now president, Irfan Ali, was scheduled to vote. And I covered that entire region, and I did not observe any issues that presented itself that day.
It was a long day. It was a smooth day, you know. We went to, I believe we started in Kitty. We met up with some election observers, some folks from the Carter Center. I believe I met Jimmy Carter's grandson who was there, and we had a pretty normal day, you know. Things were happening, but we had a couple of hiccups throughout the day that we heard, some minor disturbances at some polling stations across the country, but nothing that was so worrying that would, you know, warrant a 5-month election impasse.
The day of itself was not that traumatizing. I started the day around 4:30. I recall I went to see the president cast his ballot. That was President Granger at the time. And so it was up the East Bank. And I journeyed up there with some other reporters, I think Nazima and 2 other persons. And we went there, we came down and went the other places checking out things. Things were going pretty smoothly on the day. So we're at the Ashman's building, where this was the Region 4 Command Center. Probably my first time here since the events that unfolded back then. My most shocking event here, I think that would have to be either the first or second attempt to declare the winner of Region 4. I recall it was Lowenfield who stood on the escalator or the stairway, one of those things inside, and he tried to declare the winner, and I was outside at the time and I heard this uproar because media workers weren't allowed in. So there were these barricades here, and when we heard the uproar, we tried to push our way in.
I remember we were at the Marriott Hotel and we got a call that something is going on there, we need to go there now. And that was late in the evening, and our team had no idea what was going to happen. Neil Marks went over to the Ashman's building, we went live, and when we went live that evening, we did not stop that live coverage for more than 24 hours. I remember being in the same clothing I was on March 3rd to March 4th and even into March 5th.
So what we know is that during that period, about 3 declarations were purported for Region 4 that were not consistent with the actual will of the people. What I'm going to tell you is about the second time the Region 4 returning officer attempted to make a declaration that was not consistent. This was after the Chief Justice told them the first declaration is unlawful and you need to go back to the drawing board. So they moved from the Ashman's building to High Street at 𝐔𝐃𝐄𝐑 office.
One evening, after a very long day, we got word from someone in a media group that they had made a declaration and we needed to head down to 𝐔𝐃𝐄𝐑 office to confirm. I remember it was maybe 9 p.m. or something. My colleagues and I were in the office. We jumped into the vehicle, sped down the road. We got here. There were barricades all over, of course. We couldn't come this way. I remember we came through Barrack Street over there. There were still barricades, but at the front here, there was a very large group of, I think, supporters of the then government at the time. There were at least, I don't know, 50, 60, 80 at the front here. And I remember we were coming down Barrack Street, rushing to see what's happening, because we heard that there's this declaration, and everybody was surprised because we didn't know that it was at that time already. And we ran down the street. I remember it was myself, Kemal, Shakima, and as we're coming down, all I'm hearing, I just saw this angry mob of people who came rushing at us, and they're like, no media, no media, no media. I remember I heard a few bottles broken. We kind of had to run back into the vehicle. They had pieces of wood. It was traumatizing because nobody expected that. And as media professionals, we should be allowed to do our work freely, to report the facts like I've been honing on in. And we couldn't even make it close to GCOM. I think we just ended up stopping right in front of the aviation building there, and we just ran back into the office. I was in shock. I had never experienced something like this. I remember going into the washroom, and I just broke down, and my colleagues broke down. Like, we didn't know how to handle something like that.
What happened there is that many of the reporters who attempted to get into the compound to cover the declaration didn't actually get a chance to do that. But what really stood out to me and 𝐓𝐇 News is that we spoke to 5 political parties that were inside the compound while the polling data was being conducted. And what they told me, 5 political parties, right? Including the People's Progressive Party and United Guyana, the New Movement, and the Liberty and Justice Party. They said that it was very clear that GCOM presented data that doctored the result, which for every polling document increased the vote marginally for the APNU+AFC and reduced the vote for the PPPC.
Kemal, I mean, you're a journalist in this time, an independent journalist at that.
Yeah.
Looking at all of this happening, all of these things happening one after the other, what was that like for you? I mean, going through this as a journalist, dealing with something like this?
Well, the thing is, Shaquan, I have read the historical record of the PNC rigging the elections during the 80s. It's another thing to actually experience it. I was just about 2 years into reporting because I started in 2018. And when you cover the elections, you typically expect that the day is going to be peaceful, that the count's going to be peaceful. And for the most part, it was. But the chaos that ensued, it was something that I was wholly unprepared for.
There was a protest, and I was between covering the protest and following the occurrences at this building. And a politician came with a letter. I think it was one of those, they had the court actions up and down, one is lawyer's letter. And I recall being shoved in the corner. You see me height, a little piece, and you have to be wearing flats, so I hadn't the benefit of these heels. And I was shoved, and they said, we're going to kill Matty here today. And I never want to die. So it was a little, I might be a bit dramatic, but it was shaking.
It was hard to continue working, not only with the chaos at the time, but also through a pandemic, which nobody anticipated and didn't even take into consideration how serious that was. In addition to dealing with the pandemic and some of our members of staff falling ill, we still continued coverage because the recount took 33 days, and we were outside of the Artichon Conference Center every single day.
Look, when you come into the media, there are certain tenets that you hold on to. You have to be fair, you have to be impartial. There's no swinging a thing in a certain way. You report the facts, you report what is confirmed, you report what you see. But even that has to be confirmed, you know?
Virtually all the observer groups who oversaw the mayhem said that there was a flagrant attempt to rig the 2020 elections in favor of the APNU+AFC. In fact, it was former Prime Minister of Jamaica Bruce Golding who said,
"I have never seen a more transparent effort to alter the result of an election."
In 2021, 9 persons were charged with conspiracy to declare a false account of votes in the 2020 elections. To date, this matter is still to be determined.
Well, every Guyanese will hope and expect for the election, for the conduct of the poll to be peaceful and orderly. For the most part, in 2020, the actual conduct of the poll during the day of the election on March 2nd was peaceful and orderly. But what followed, the chaos that ensued surrounding the tabulation of the vote, that's not something that anybody wants to see repeat itself.
For the younger folks who are now getting into the media and now have a first-hand experience of covering the 2025 elections, I'll tell them the same thing my editors and my team told me. Report the facts. I want to see no sort of disaster like what I witnessed in the 2020 elections. Everything must be smooth. And I'm not saying that throughout the day there aren't going to be hiccups. You know, these things happen. Sometimes there's a lapse in communication, and it happens all the time. But it's important that you report verified facts.
For political parties to be more accountable, responsible, and accept the results once it has been declared in a free, fair, and transparent manner. We know some of the political parties campaign on honesty and decency, but we shouldn't just campaign on those things. We should uphold them as well. And I would like to see GCOM being more stringent and serious about its role and its responsibility and holding its officers accountable when they act outside of the law.